Welcome to Remedy and Rhyme, a space where poetry meets the wise power of plants. I'm your host, Kimberly Kling of Joyful Roots. We'll begin each episode with a poem, a soul offering inspired by a single herb. From there, we'll follow the thread of the plant's deeper wisdom, exploring what it reveals to the heart, how it invites us into greater awareness, and how we might welcome that into our own lives. Then we'll ground that insight with simple ways to work with the herb in your everyday life rhythms. So whether you're here for the poetry, the plant stories, or the space in between, I'm so grateful that you've joined me. This podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. I'm not a medical doctor or a licensed health professional, and nothing shared here is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. The information provided has not been evaluated by the FDA. Herbs are powerful allies, but not without personality. If you experience an allergic reaction or discomfort from any herb mentioned, please stop using it. Also, if you're taking medications, check with your doctor about potential herb-drug interactions. Most importantly, you and you alone are the steward of your own body. What you choose to consume, apply, or integrate is entirely up to you. This is about health empowerment. Listen with curiosity and always honor your own body's wisdom. Well, hello, my fellow plant and poetry lovers. Happy autumn if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. I have a special plant to talk about today that I feel like correlates really nicely with fall, and that plant is cedar. So let's start off with our poem, shall we? This poem is called Ashes to Ashes, and it was written by me. How small your world becomes when it's holy versus hell, us versus them, blinded by binary, parceling each person into a sliver of themselves, myopic murdering of nuance. Light the cedar, unhaunt the trappings of your mind, layers of conditioning coated by empires long laid to rot. Burn it into elemental dust, alive with fractal upon fractal of differentiation, spectacular spectacles of mercy and grace. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let the charred remains of your conditioning float away on crisp wind. Let the night swallow it whole and keep it in the great abyss until the morning mourns with you. Let your tears cover the earth in forgiveness to find your enemy made of the same stardust as you. Cedar, the genus Cedrus, is a tree of strength and endurance, evergreen in its being, holding green even in the depths of winter. As we move into autumn, cedar is a stalwart companion, reminding us of life as the world around us goes cold and starts to slumber. Cedars are frequently mistaken for cypress or juniper trees, which has led to many species being inaccurately labeled as cedar. For example, western red cedar is actually Thuja genus or Thuja plicata. Yellow cedar is actually a cypress, and its Latin name is Cupressus nootcatensis. And then there's Mexican white cedar, which is actually Cupressus lusitanica, technically another type of cypress. The true cedars all belong to the genus Cedrus and are members of the family Pinaceae and are native to the Mediterranean region and the Himalayas. However, the therapeutic and aromatic qualities of pines and cypress and thuja that are commonly called cedars are actually very similar to those of true cedars. Technically, this podcast is going to be talking about true cedars. However, since there is so much overlap, you may be able to use some of these other plants that are commonly called cedars in very similar ways, and I'll leave that discretion up to you. The needles of cedar release a sharp, cleansing aroma when crushed, and its wood and resins have long been burned as incense or smoke to purify space and spirit. The branches of cedar grow in a way that feels both protective and expansive, sheltering those who gather beneath them while reaching ever upward toward the sky. In herbal traditions, cedar has been worked with for protection, purification, and opening the breath, connecting lungs to land, individual to community. It's a tree that bridges earth and air, grounding us in our place while simultaneously clearing the way for new beginnings. Cedar is an unhaunter. It moves through the shadowed corners of the mind where cobwebs of empire still cling, old codes of hierarchy, of separation, and of othering, and it sweeps them out. Who couldn't use a good sweeping out of the stuck gunk once in a while? I know I can, and maybe, just maybe, our wider culture could use that same kind of fresh air right now. Cedar clears. Cedar makes space. Its breath is not only a fragrance, but an opening, a dismantling of what has long tried to tell us who we should be. Empire and patriarchy both work by crowding out our breath. They tell us to shrink ourselves, to fit into roles, to forget our own rhythms, to disconnect from our bodies and each other. They weave stories of hierarchy, scarcity, and domination so tightly that we start to believe them as truth. And then over time, these patterns become like stagnant air in the mind and the heart, heavy, stale, and suffocating. When we sit with Cedar, we're invited to breathe in fresh air and breathe out what is stale. To feel how much of the weight we carry is not ours, but was placed there by a patriarchy, by empire, and by systems that thrive when we forget our own sovereignty and our own connection to community. Cedar does not accuse us for holding onto these things. Instead, Cedar offers us a firm but gentle cleansing, scouring the mental and emotional body of data, of programming that no longer serves us. The shoulds, the false stories, the inherited fears and traumas that keep us circling inside instead of stepping forward. Cedar is a friend that can help us unwind and unfurl the trappings of our own mind, the repeating patterns that bring us and perhaps others harm. Cedar invites us to remember that we are not meant to live in confinement, but in connection with our own breath, with the land beneath us, and with the wider community of beings around us. Where empire constricts, Cedar opens. Where patriarchy isolates, Cedar gathers us back into belonging. Where domination clings like dust, Cedar sweeps clean, making room for what is vital and true. There's a sharpness to Cedar, but also a great generosity. Cedar protects, but it doesn't build a wall. It builds a community. It shows us that protection and belonging are not opposites of each other, and that we can stand in our power and still breathe together. In this way, Cedar helps us remember why we're here: to walk this world awake, to walk in right relationship, to breathe not only for ourselves, but for those who are with us and those who come after us. So, as we continue, let us enter into the next chapter of this podcast with Cedar's clarity in mind, unhaunting ourselves, uncoding the empire within, and letting the air around and inside us grow fresher, freer, and more true. Inspired by Cedar and what I've learned, I've dreamed a story about Cedar in my own voice, but a story that weaves Cedar's gifts throughout many cultures with the ideas that we've been exploring so far in this podcast. Unhaunting the corners of the mind, clearing the trappings of empire, dismantling internalized patriarchy, and finding space to breathe and belong. So let's explore. In the quiet, Cedar stands, evergreen and rooted deep, reaching toward the sky, holding the space between earth and air, the space where our minds hold what no longer serves. One day, the animals of the forest noticed their voices were fading. The birds could no longer sing, the wind carried no laughter, the foxes and rabbits moved in shadows, cautious as if the world had grown too heavy to speak. Even the owls fell silent in the night. High above, a cloud spirit had settled, unknowingly holding all the unspoken grief the silenced songs, the centuries of burdens carried but never released. Its stormy presence dulled the dawn and muted the chorus of life. But cedar, rooted in strength and clarity, stretched its branches toward the sky, filling the space with fragrance and light. The cloud spirit brushed against its boughs, and the tree held it gently, offering its own steady presence as a place for grief to settle, to be seen, and to be released. Slowly, the cloud spirit exhaled into the cedar's branches, softening into rain and then wind that carried laughter, freedom, and song to the land once again. One by one, the birds remembered their voices, the foxes and rabbits moved with curiosity and courage, and the owls hooted into the returning night. Cedar trembled with their song, its roots humming with release, its branches reaching for the sky. And Cedar reminds us to this day that when our song is silenced, when the weight of the world, of empire, of patriarchy all dull us down, when we feel too small to be heard, there's always a way upward, there's always another breath, and there's always a force within us that's rooted and steady and ready to liberate our song again. Cedar stands as a sentinel in the forest, its evergreen branches reaching toward the sky, offering both shelter and wisdom. But beyond its spiritual significance, cedar also serves as a potent ally for its physical aspects, harmonizing body and spirit. When gathering cedar, it's very important to know with 100% certainty which plant you have. While most of the lookalikes have similar therapeutic properties, there is one toxic lookalike called the yew tree. The cedar that I commonly work with in Arizona is the deodar cedar, or Cedrus deodara, which is not native to this region but is commonly used as a landscape plant. Cedrus atlantica and Cedrus libani are both threatened plants, so it's best not to work with those plants if you are in their native environment and stick to more readily abundant evergreens. Cedar's aromatic qualities have long been utilized to support the respiratory system. Traditional practices involve inhaling steam infused with cedar leaves to clear the airways and alleviate symptoms of colds, bronchitis, and congestion. The warming properties of cedar are really great for helping with cold, damp conditions, and cedar can help to loosen up mucus, which will ultimately make it easier to expel that mucus and breathe freely again. Cedar is rich in compounds like thujone, which have been recognized for their antiseptic and antifungal properties, and these attributes make it really valuable in combating infections and strengthening the body's defenses overall. Whether it's through topical applications or carefully prepared infusions, cedar can help as a strong disinfectant in first aid situations. It also helps to improve blood flow to an area and can help to activate the immune system. Cedar's inflammation modulating properties make it beneficial for conditions like joint and muscle pain. And as an added bonus, it has antispasmodic effects that can help to reduce muscle cramps and spasms, which offers relief and relaxation. While less commonly discussed and also deserving of more caution, cedar has been used to also support digestive health, particularly in addressing issues like flatulence and indigestion. Because it promotes healthy blood flow, that's also going to impact the digestive system beneficially and increase overall vitality in the body. By helping to mobilize and drain metabolic waste products, cedar can also have a nice detoxifying effect. So let's talk about some ways that we can work with cedar to bring these aspects into our lives. The first way might be through herbal steams. This is one of my favorite methods because cedar smells so amazing. When you inhale the steam that is infused with cedar leaves, it can help to clear and open your airways, adding the benefit of moisture as well as those volatile oils that are so beneficial to our respiratory system. This method is particularly useful when respiratory conditions are accompanied by dryness or congestion. The warmth and the moisture of the steam help to break up the mucus, facilitating easier breathing. To do this, you want to place the leaves of the cedar tree into a nice heat-proof bowl, and then you want to bring water, enough water to cover the leaves in that bowl, to a boiling point or just below boiling, just getting the water nice and steamy. And you want to place that bowl on a table or a countertop, something where you can lean over it, but it's not going to get bumped and risk getting hot water on yourself. And then you want to pour that hot water over top of the leaves and put your head over the steam that's coming off of the bowl, making sure, again, that it's not too hot and that you don't burn yourself. And you can also place a towel over your head and kind of make a tent to trap the steam in. That works really nicely and helps the steam kind of last a bit longer and congregate around your face. One extra tip though, I have encountered some people who are allergic to cedar pollen, and so when you harvest your cedar, make sure it's not flowering. Just in case there is an allergy, you don't want to be breathing in that pollen and making things worse for yourself. Another way that I love working with cedar is to infuse the leaves of cedar or the resin, if you can find any, into some oil, a carrier oil like almond oil or jojoba, something that has a neutral scent to it, because the cedar smells so amazing. You want that to really come through. So you're going to pack a jar about 3/4 of the way full with dried cedar leaves. Make sure that it's completely dry. And then you're going to pour your carrier oil over top of the leaves and cover it and keep it in a dark, cool space for about 3 weeks. You can gently shake the bottle to help it infuse better every couple of days. And then after about 3 weeks, you can strain out those leaves and you'll have this beautiful oil that smells like cedar. It has its aromatic and therapeutic qualities. This can be used for massages, or you can use it to create a soothing balm for the skin. And if you don't have access to the plant material, you can also make a lovely oil by diluting cedar wood essential oil in the carrier oil. Just a note here that Atlas cedarwood essential oil likely comes from unsustainable sources, unless the producer is specifically saying otherwise. So you may want to opt for Virginia cedar or Himalayan cedar essential oil instead. Another way to work with the aromatic qualities of cedar is to burn cedar. You can do this in the form of incense or some sort of smoke ritual, making cedar leaf bundles, letting them dry, and then burning those. This helps purify the air and creates a really grounding atmosphere. The smoke is particularly effective for respiratory conditions that feel like they're really damp and need clearing. This would be opposite to the dry respiratory conditions where you might want to opt for the steam instead. It's just also a really wonderful way to refresh the energy of the space, especially after there's been an illness that's gone through your home or during times of emotional heaviness. A cedar tea can also be made from the leaves or branches of the tree, and this can be used both internally and externally. Internally, it can help to support respiratory and immune health, like we talked about earlier, improving blood flow and activating the immune system, just helping us to support our natural defenses. The combo of cedar and sage makes for a really beautiful tea for this purpose as well. And externally, this infusion can be used as a beautiful wash for the skin. It can be helpful for disinfecting and also for the joint and muscle pain, as we talked about earlier. But it's important to use cedar tea in moderation because it has thujone in it, which is a compound that can be toxic in high doses. Cedar's leaves and berries are generally considered safe in small and respectful amounts, though. The berries, if taken in larger doses, may upset the stomach, and the leaves hold higher levels of that thujone compound that can be quite harsh on the body when used in excess. So because of this, cedar is best worked with in moderation and not to be used during pregnancy because it has traditionally been known to stimulate the uterus and can also encourage delayed menses. As with any herb, if you are pregnant or nursing or on medications or have a medical condition, it's best to consult your healthcare team to see what's right for you and also do your own due diligence to find what's right for your body. So as we sit and simmer on our newfound wisdom around cedar, let's think about how cedar might support us in our own wellness practices, offering physical and spiritual benefits. Its ability to purify and protect and restore make it a powerful ally in our adventures towards physical, mental, and emotional clarity. And with that, I'd like to leave you with a few reflection questions. Where in your mind or heart do old patterns of hierarchy, separation, or internalized rules of empire still linger? What thoughts, beliefs, or habits could use clearing to make space for something new? And what practices, relationships, or qualities could you cultivate as an evergreen support system? Something that's steadfast, nourishing, and reaching toward the sky. Now imagine planting a seed of resilience in your life. What would it be and how would it grow? Thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to see more poems being submitted to Remedy and Rhyme so that I can share them on this podcast and make it a bit more of a community effort. I know there's some amazing poets out there. So if you have any poetry that you think might be aligned with this podcast, please send me an email at kim@joyfulroots.com, and in the title of the email you can tell me that it's a poetry submission for Remedy and Rhyme. I've had a few people reach out asking me which plants they might be able to submit poetry for, and while I don't know for sure which episodes I will be doing in the future, I do have a list of plants that might be possibilities, and if I get a poem submitted for one of those, I'm more likely to create a show around that. So some of the plants that I currently do not have poetry for as of this episode are yarrow, creosote bush, willow, oats, grapefruit or citrus in general, calendula, garlic, mugwort, elecampane, pine, wood betony, mint, and lemon balm. I'm sure there are more, but I do have about 4 episodes lined up for the future, and I'd kind of like to keep those plants a secret. So if you want to stick with submitting for one of those particular plants that I just mentioned, or reach out to me, that's also great. I would love to get more community submissions for poetry. I think it would be really fun to develop an episode around someone else's poem. I am so excited to keep sharing the wisdom of plants and poetry with all of you. If you enjoy this journey and would like to help support this podcast, whether energetically, financially, or just by sharing it with a friend, I would be so grateful. Your support helps to keep this space alive, allows me to continue exploring new herbs, crafting new episodes, and sharing inspiration with you. One of the easiest ways to support this podcast is to rate and review it in your favorite podcast app. You can also join our Remedy and Rhyme Patreon page, which is available at patreon.com/joyfulroots. You'll find all sorts of goodies there, including plant stories, recipes, and more. There is a free membership, but if you are able to help support the podcast via any sort of monetary donation, that is super appreciated. This episode is also brought to you in part by my favorite matcha on the planet, Posana Matcha. It's certified organic, third-party tested to ensure that it's free of heavy metals. It's pure, safe, and absolutely delicious. I love indulging in this every day. It's a single origin matcha that's grown in the lush fields of Shizuoka, Japan. And honestly, it's the only matcha that I reach for anymore. So when you use my code JoyfulRoots, That's JOYFULROOTS at checkout on Posana's website. You'll get 10% off your order, and you'll be supporting this podcast through the small affiliate commission that I receive, which helps me to continue creating this empowering herbal content just for you. You can find the link in the show notes or head to posana.net. That's POSANA.net. And use the coupon code JoyfulRoots at checkout for 10% off your order. I'd like to give thanks for the music in the intro and the outro that is called Bedtime After a Coffee by Ikun Baradine on Chosik. I'd like to give immense thanks to my family for supporting me in this herbal journey, and for all of my friends and community who have also been so supportive. I'd like to give a shout out to all of the other herbalists who have influenced me. There are really just too many to name, but I'm so appreciative. And of course, my deepest gratitude goes to our plant allies who have honestly taught me more than I could have ever imagined. I'll see you in the next episode.